20 years ago, my good friend Douglas Adams spent a year tracking down endangered animals, together with the zoologist Mark Carwardine. Now it's my turn.
Indeed, I have washed the stains of my life off in that very bath, and I'm glad to see that Google, the purchasers, have kept it very clean. There are no scum lines or any tide marks or anything like that. It's rather pleasant, and it's filled with little symbols of Douglas's life, from everything from Arthur Dent with a towel to a TARDIS, because let's not forget he was also a script editor for Doctor Who.
I think you met him about a year before I did, didn't you?
I think I did.
Yeah.
It came about through, I'm afraid it has to be said, the Apple Macintosh computer. It's generally held to be true. I think it's gone into folklore, even if it isn't a demonstrable fact, that Douglas bought the first Apple Macintosh computer in January 1984, and I bought the second. And it was Richard Curtis who in fact introduced us. But every day, almost, I would go and I would knock on the door, and Jane, Douglas's long-suffering wife, would go, he's upstairs, and I would go up and play.
It was that top room, wasn't it?
It literally was like a mother, you know, when one of her children's friends comes around to play with the train set, and we would spend hours and hours and hours basically waiting for the thing to go bing and then having to boot it up again.
Well, I first met him in Madagascar, because I was working for the World Wildlife Fund at the time, and cut a long story short, you remember we got involved in this idea to take Douglas to Madagascar to look at the project.
Yes, The Observer were running a series, weren't they, in the days of the good old colour magazine. Yeah.
And I was asked by the World Wildlife Fund to go on an assignment to find the ii and see it and spot the ii. The ii is a very curious creature. It's nocturnal, which makes it difficult to spot. It means you have to take a torch. No, really. That's an important point when you arrive in the rainforest and discover you haven't got your torch with you.
And I think the ii just awoke in him a whole new area of curiosity. And that is, in a sense, it is the greatest area of curiosity that man can have. The place in which we were born, this strange sphere, this peculiar globe. He had written about globes all over the universe, and he had used them as satirical kind of jumping off points for us to look at ourselves and our own globe, but he'd never perhaps considered the real astonishment that is evolution.
But I must say, I enjoyed it so much that I'm hoping that there's going to be more of that kind of thing. I think Mark and I are probably going to set up some expedition of our own back, maybe sometime next year.
What we actually did, we went to his house in Islington, put a map of the world on the wall, and Douglas stuck pins in the map where he'd like to go, and I stuck pins where there were some interesting endangered species, and wherever there were two pins, we went
reasonably close
pretty
together.
Much. Not quite that, but that was the gist of what happened.
What's melancholy and perhaps indicative is that you chose 8 species, 2 of which are now functionally or absolutely extinct.
Mm-hmm. The reality is lots of species are disappearing. We never get to hear about it. It's only really when something like Last Chance to See comes along and highlights a species and then says, actually, now this one's gone, that we realise. I mean, lots of species have disappeared in the same 20-year period. We just haven't heard. Douglas really felt for these rhinos. We had an extraordinary stroke of luck, and there were 22 northern white rhinos left in the whole world, and they were all in this national park, Garamba National Park in Zaire, and we saw 8 of them. It sort of stuck with Douglas, and he always felt that the northern white rhino was one of the animals that he really wanted to help.
A kind of index species, really, and the strange thing about rhinos is we all are vaguely brought up to believe they're rather dangerous and that they've got bad eyesight, and if they see you, they'll charge you. And of course, you certainly wouldn't want to mess with one, but they're vegetarians, so they're not going to eat you. All they're ever going to do is protect their territory or protect their mate. It's all about food and sex with animals, as we know.
Oh my. This is, it turns out, 2 tons of the tamest rhino in Africa.
My goodness me.
Bottle-fed, hand-reared, and known as Max.
They're being killed for their horns, and Max was shot, I've forgotten how many times, many times. It was almost an assassination.
They come with machine guns in these, and they do the same to the elephants, because the unfortunate thing is, the rarer the animal becomes, such as the laws of economics, the ineluctable laws of economics, is that the more valuable, so even when you shave off, you saw off the horns, which you routinely do in parks. You make sure that you flatten the horn. Even the bit left in the root is so valuable, they'll kill the animal just to get that, because of the market for it in China.
So the big challenge for conservation is to try to get a groundswell of support and opinion in countries like China, and to support conservation groups and individuals in China and elsewhere to do that work within their own country.
Yeah, and to return it to our hero, whose bath we're sitting at, Douglas points the way, because he's humorous and because he's human, he understands that you don't get... That's my phone. That's deeply embarrassing.
The trick, you turn the phone off.
Hello.
When you're...
Would be Benny Hill. Hello?
We'll cut there.
Oh, look at that. You are being shagged by a rare parrot.
Wow.
I want you to call the chick. When you have the chick, I want you to call it Stephen for me. Would you do that?